I'm sure by now you would have seen either on news, Instagram, Twitter, or wherever you chill that Adobe has acquired Figma. This is actually a big deal, even for us React Native developers. But you might be asking yourself, how does Figma being bought by Adobe affect me as a React Native developer? But the actual truth is that it does. And we're just gonna touch on the different ways that this purchase will affect us, React Native developers. So Figma was bought by Adobe for a staggering figure of $20 billion. Obviously, this was divided into cash and stock, and it's one of the biggest purchases that Adobe has done. So they saw great potential in Figma, and they went far beyond their means to actually acquire the company itself, which always pride itself as being independent. So React Native developers tend to use Figma in two ways. The first one, we have a class of developers who are actually freelancers. They run their own business. They chose React Native because they knew that they can develop apps for iOS and Android and web without having to learn 3 different languages. So they just need simplistic tools to actually allow them to build and design apps and then ship them to clients. I am in one of those people. So I use Figma to design the UI, the physical bulletins that are going to be on the app, the colors, styling. I use Figma for all of those items. For me, Figma is a big deal, and I use it in so many ways. So this purchase will mean that if it goes through and Adobe decides to use a similar structure that they're using for their other creative software like Premiere, Photoshop, whereby they charge the subscription and exorbitant prices for minimal items or features, I think it'll be a bad deal, because that means then they'll be taking more from my pocket, and it will make it difficult as well to actually bring the cost down as a freelancer. That's the first one. So that's one of the reasons, and you find that like many React Native developers are actually also freelancers. Either during their daytime they work at a web establishment whereby they create websites with React, and then they pick up React Native as a way to supplement their income. This will stand in the way of that. This has the potential of actually derailing many developers who are trying to be independent, who are trying to be their own boss. So this goes like this is not what we need in the industry at the moment. I mean, it's too early to tell now because we don't know how they might act and what decisions that Adobe will go for. They have promised to keep Figma independent, but we know that never happens. So another way that developers or React Native developers use Figma is like mainly they'll be working in a team in a software dev company, and then their designer will normally do the UI UX, and then they'll hand the designs over to the developer for more of like a smooth, seamless process. And the developer will tend to actually use the typography within the design, and then they'll automatically know what design to use without having to bugger the designer every second. The colors as well, because Figma makes it easy to do all these items. And if people are interested as well, I can do an intro video for Figma, but then with the slight twist that the course will be mainly for React Native developers. So it will be Figma for React Native developers. If you're looking for something like that, do let me know in the comments down below. So this is something which is gonna affect us. I'm sure all of you are able to agree with me. And then one other thing as well is that, like, most of the tooling which is used to build React Native, they actually, when it comes to the UI, they're using Figma for finalizing, like making small details. And then besides that, there are tools already which assist React Native developers to actually create React Native apps using Figma. So I mean, I can tell you, like, for example, one of the tools, look at tools like, if I go to my plugins, there's a tool called Teleport HQ, which allows you to turn a Figma design to code. And then another really nice plugin as well is called Iconify. I'm going to put a link to these plugins I'm talking about in the description. Iconify as well, you simply create a Figma design and you actually can create, like, export it as React Native code, like a React Native app. So that means then you only gonna add the logic to the app without having to retype the UI. These are tools which are already using Figma, and if Figma is not attainable anymore to React Native developers, that means then it will be difficult for us to use those tools. So this is one of the reasons these patches might affect us. So, but then, like, on the bright side, there is alternatives to Figma, and we all know about the likes of Sketch, for example. But then it's still like not ideal. So Sketch is also like a UI development platform, whereby you actually creating mockups for design or prototypes, and then you can hand them over to developers. They actually have cool features, and they are one of the best alternatives to Figma. But then, like, the adoption hasn't been there. It's mainly because of their pricing. They tend to want you to pay than to start free or have like generous free options, of which, like, just doesn't make sense when you're starting out. Looking at this even more, we see that we have to actually push for Adobe to keep Figma independent. But then if that doesn't happen, luckily now there's a free open source Figma alternative called PenPot. PenPot is actually a design software tool, a prototyping tool like Figma, but the only difference here is that it's not like it is open sourced. So this means that I can actually go to the GitHub repo of this application and actually contribute to this code. And, like, from the founders, they do promise that the the software will always be free. I mean, even if they change, since we have the code, you can almost rebuild it, modify it, or change it to whatever you want. And the team behind this, like, I like their principles behind it. Isn't like they fully embrace their communities, and they fully embrace the ability to share knowledge. And so this has the potential to actually replace Figma. So this is like their GitHub repo. So you can actually see this is the code which is on their repo. So this is the actual code which is powering the app, and you can actually play around with it. You can do pull requests, and you can note their issues. You actually know what's happening. They're using Docker containers, and what's happening in the background, like in their back end, they're using AWS. It's like things that we don't know about Figma, but we know about PenPot, and we can actually contribute, do write up on bugs. But enough of that. Let's actually check their app out and see how the app is like. Is it a one-to-one copy of Figma, or are we gonna still miss something? So when I was starting out the app itself, it took quite a bit of time just to open it up. But then, like, the app itself, it is getting there. It's still on beta, and it was currently launched on Project Hunt like 2 years ago. But then, like, the options are there, and they're currently adding many features almost like monthly now, and they're starting to get to that point whereby it can actually be almost at the same feature parity with Figma. So let me just open one of the designs, and then I'll show you how it looks. So here I'm opening a design which is this is like a plant app. So you have access to the details, like the design details. For example, this is looking more like Figma. You can log items, and you can view, and you can get more details. You can prototype as well, just like Figma. So 100% prototype, it actually will show. I don't see the option to actually use like a skin for an iPhone or something like that. Maybe that feature is still not there, or maybe, but I just signed up for this application now, so I don't know some of the things happening here. But so far, like, I am like impressed by what they're able to do. And given that this is still like in like beta, so I mean, then like they're still ironing out, they're still adding features. This is actually great for us React Native developers. So yeah, now if you know of any other alternatives to Figma which are great and would actually help the React Native community, do put it in the description to help other devs. But then I'm excited to actually start playing around with this app, PenPot, and then see what I can build. If you're looking forward to, if you want a tutorial of me building an app with this platform, just give this video a like, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers, y'all.